Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll take a call on this particular bill and just acknowledge firstly the Minister advancing this bill and other colleagues who have been driving this from the beginning. I also want to acknowledge the fact that there seems to be a general acceptance around this House for supporting this bill, which I think is a really good thing. I think for most of us, when we go overseas, it's usually the only time that we start considering some of our historic areas of this country and our history is when people ask you where you are from, and when you say you're from New Zealand, then the questions begin to flow about what we know about New Zealand and its history. Only yesterday afternoon, next door from this house, we had a celebration of the scholarships, Top Scholars Award next door. Before that was done, the kaumatua of the Parliament was there and began by welcoming, and then later on asked the 35 or so recipients of the top scholars throughout New Zealand. And in te reo, chanted and gave them something which moved, by my estimation and my observation, moved all those who were present. So I don't understand te reo Māori. I do some, but I don't understand the depth of te reo Māori. But yesterday, in that chanting and in the blessing that was given by our kaumatua to those recipients, there was a common feeling of oneness in that particular room, even though many who were present would probably not understand the detail or the depth of meaning that was conveyed by our kaumatua. Which brings me to part 4, sir, when we consider the fact that in this particular bill, we are recognising, probably in a more, not only a formal but legal manner, but I think in a more in-depth manner, firstly, the historic places, our historic areas, the use of the word wahi tupuna, wahi tapu, and the wahi tapu areas are significant. In the electorate that I represent, sir, of Māngere, which I affectionately call the gateway to the nation, land of the young, beautiful and gifted, we have such places which the local kaumatuas and the iwi recognise. In fact, not too long ago, I was privileged to welcome some people into Māngere at the Māngere Mountain Historic Place there. And look, I'm not a historian, nor am I an archaeologist, but I learnt quite a bit by being present there and observing and listening to the people who were presenting at that particular forum, sir. And I say to you that the majority of people who were present at the forum were not necessarily Māori, not necessarily experts in this particular field, but we all learnt, sir, of the depth of history that is in that place, of the meaning of Māngere. In fact, it was the elders who then later on said that the true name for Māngere is not Māngere, but Te Haua Māngere, which refers, from my understanding as explained to me, refers to the winds and how that mountain blocks off a significant part of the winds that that covers that particular region. So, you know, I think from my perspective, sir, as a Pacific person who is a New Zealander with a proud heritage in Samoan culture, sir, I think this is a great news in terms of this House uniting around the fact that we do need to recognise some of these historic and cultural heritage which are significant, of significant value, not only to Māori people themselves, but I think for the rest of New Zealand. There is only one New Zealand. There is only one place where Māori now reside, and that is Aotearoa, the land of the long white cloud. The second part I want to refer to, and I'm not sure the Minister would be able to respond to that either now or at a later stage, is it makes reference to the role of local government, Mr. Speaker.
Sir William Seo.
It refers that the local authorities have a particular regard to the recommendations made by the Heritage New Zealand Pouhere Taonga. And I wasn't part of the committee that deliberated on this particular bill, but from the recent scanning of the particular bill, I don't see any reference at all of if the trust is recommending an area, for example, in Manukau that is deemed to be recognised as a Category 1 or 2 historic, and then therefore imposing on council a role to protect that, to build some advocacy and support for it. Is there an avenue for the local council to then be able to seek assistance from central government in terms of how they would protect and promote that and even build it as a tourism iconic product? And for me, sir, as I said, it's unclear from my scanning of the bill whether that could be made a little bit more clearer, because I know that many of the councils, the regular complaint to central government has been that central government has a tendency to impose on local government legislation or the implementation of legislation without necessarily the support that they ought to receive. And therefore, without that support, local government tend to complain that they must then go back to their ratepayers and, of course, deal with that in one way or another, whether it be debt or whether it be the increasing of rates. But other than that, sir, I think in terms of Part 4 of this bill, I think it's absolutely delightful that we in this House seem united around the recognition that there is such things. The Māori word is taonga. Probably the English word that I think is comparable to that is treasures. In fact, in the Samoan world, it would be mea sina. Things which are unique, things which are sacred, things which have a value beyond what is seen by the eyes. Thank you.
Phil Twyford.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.